Gold gang, man, all day. You know what time it is already. Out the gate, jersey of the day. All right, Niner family. You know I love y'all, man. I really do. Thanks for holding me down. I appreciate y'all. You know I'm gonna keep bringing you the jersey of the day. But for the first time in a while, this is not a Niners jersey I'm displaying. Uh, you know I'm a football fan above everything, and that's just what it is. Football, boxing, that's my twist. And I just love the game, so there are players' jerseys that I grab that aren't 49ers, but you know, they're definitely legends. And you know, certain teams and players are definitely off limits. But this dude right here, one of the greatest ever at his position. Some say he's the best linebacker of all time. That can be debated, but he definitely changed the game, yo. And you know, particularly with linebackers, I don't really go by just overall the best linebacker because there are so many different types of linebackers and skill sets and things like that. But just at that position, this dude absolutely was an outlier. And just like I said, he changed the game. So, and when I saw this joint, man, I definitely couldn't pass up on it. You can see the Super Bowl patch. But check this out. Look at the jock tag. This is a Cosby joint. And you know, this patch right here shows that it was actually distributed to the actual team. So this is an actual Lawrence Taylor game jersey, team issued, game issued. He didn't play in it, but it was distributed. You know, each game they give the players, they make like 2 jerseys for them every game, just in case something happens to one. You know, it's a physical sport, so sometimes it may get ripped, or if there's blood on it, it has to come off. So this is one of the joints that was distributed to him. It just, you know, he never wore it, but this is still a team issue, so I just think it's super dope. And I'm definitely wearing this today in light of the conversation that we're going to have at this particular time. Gotta show love to New York, man. Up top. I'm like an hour and a half, 2 hours away from New York. Like I always say, New Jersey should be broken down into 2 different states. It should be North Jersey and South Jersey. It's so different. Like where where Suge, Ars, Surf, O-Red, where those dudes is from, they from up top. They from up North Jersey. I'm down south. So we're right across the bridge from Philly over here. So it's we root for like the Philly teams and all that type of stuff. The Philly is like the home team. Even though the Giants and the Jets, they actually play in New Jersey, in East Rutherford, New Jersey, but they're technically New York teams. But you know, up there where those dudes is from, they right across the bridge from New York. So you can definitely tell, like if I was blindfolded and I got out in North Jersey or South Jersey, I could immediately tell where it is. But anyways, man, let's show some New York love, man. So it was requested that I talk about the dog, man, DMX, and I'd love to. I'd love to. Like I said, I'm sure that you've heard me say in a few videos now that he's my favorite artist, period. He's my favorite rapper of all time, really. Now, am I saying he's the greatest all time? I don't have that conversation because I don't think that there is one. Hello, how are you? How you doing? I'm doing well, thank you. Have a good night. Thank you. So yeah, you know, it's neighbors. Yeah, that's the kind of neighborhood I live in, man. We actually speak to each other. You know why they call the hood the hood? They call the hood because neighbors don't mess with each other. So, you know, I was brought up, man. I was brought up a certain type of way, and I love the area I'm in. But yeah, man, just my neighborly duties. So you never know, you never know when you're going to need a neighbor or anything like that. You know, it's people who they don't speak to their neighbors. They don't even know their neighbors like that. But if your house is getting broken into or something, why would somebody help you out, call the cops or whatever if they don't really know you or mess with you? Or, you know, you could be laying on the side of the street, collapse or something, and people would just go about their way. But when you build, life is about relationships, period. So, and that doesn't matter what capacity we're talking, whether it's business, personal, whatever. Life is all about relationships with people and connections. So I just like to keep all of my avenues open, man. I show love. I support showing love. I don't support hating. Tell me where that's from. But anyway, so where was it? Oh, man, Dark Man X. I don't really get into the conversations of who's the best rapper ever or the best rapper alive, because I don't really believe in it. It's the same to me with sports. Like I was saying the other day, who's the greatest basketball player to ever live? There's not one. It really isn't, because a lot of these guys are great in their own right. You look at a guy like Oscar Robertson, man. This dude did things that nobody had done before, and I think really, I think Russell Westbrook maybe may have done the same thing recently, but I'm not sure. Don't hold me to that. Like I said, man, when Kobe retired, I haven't been into basketball like I used to be. Like I used to actually follow it, and so nowadays I watch the games when they're on and whatnot, but I'm not really into it. I don't know the stats, and I go hang out with my pop, and they have a game on or something, and I'd be like, wait, wasn't he? Didn't he play for the Pacers or whatever? And it's trades that happened and all that. I just haven't been on top of it. But anyways, back to the conversation, man. DMX, he's my favorite, and I just identify with him in so many different ways. Like I brought up yesterday, X doesn't care about what other people think about him. He's himself. You know what I mean? And I think that's very rare. Particularly in the entertainment industry, where everything is all about persona, and you never really get a glimpse into the actual person, just the persona, really. So in hip-hop particularly, it has a lot to do with persona. And I just listened to, somebody posted, and I just listened to it now. It was to the Goods diss toward Cassidy, right? And hi, how you doing? Yes, sir. Yeah, so I just listened to the Goods Cassidy diss record, right? And that was ultra it was bad, man. It was terrible. But just to address something that he said, and he was talking about what Cassidy was wearing on stage or whatever, green sneakers or something he brought up. But what he was saying was, money respects money. So basically, you got to look like money. And I just disagree with that. And real wealthy people, they laugh at that type of stuff. And that attitude right there is the exact reason why we as a community and as a culture, we spend money we don't have on stuff that we don't need. And we don't really take care of the business that we should be taking care of. We don't talk about 401ks. We don't talk about retirement plans. We don't talk about owning legitimate businesses, things like that. When we get a little money, tax returns or whatever it is, when we get a little money, man, we head into the mall with it, or shopping online, or, gotta look fresh and things like that. But in my line of work, I'm a personal trainer, and I started my own business about a decade ago. So I have my own clients, and some particular clients I have live in Haddonfield, New Jersey, and the gentleman, I won't say anybody's name or whatever, but the gentleman, he's an accountant and has owned his own accounting firm for like almost 40 years, 30 something years or whatever. And his wife, she makes good money as well, but they live in a place called Haddonfield, New Jersey. Definitely look that up. And a lot of the professional Philadelphia athletes, whether it's the Sixers, Eagles, Flyers, all of them, they don't really live in Philly. They have houses. They live in Jersey. And Haddonfield is one of the towns where the players choose to live. Like, people with money live there. So as a matter of fact, my clients live like 2 blocks over from Nick Foles, the Super Bowl winning quarterback. Well, actually, Nick is selling that house now, because I don't know if you know, but he went to Jacksonville. So, but that's just what it is. But anyways, if you look at them, I met them when I was working at LA Fitness. Well, I met the wife first, and I started training her. She trained with a couple clients, a couple trainers before me, and they just weren't the right fit. So she was about to cancel her training and her membership to the gym, and they asked me, look, can you take a run with her? Can you train her? So I did that, and from the very first session, man, I won her over, and now she's like family. Like, I call her my other mother. So, but anyways, if you were to just look at them and how they live and what they drive and how they dress and things like that, you wouldn't be able to tell their net worth. And that's pretty much the case with a lot of wealthy people, not the only, but the majority of the wealthy people who are flashing or flaunting or promoting their wealth are entertainers because they have that whole persona to keep up with. But genuinely wealthy people, man, they laugh at us. They laugh at us for buying $3,000 socks and $2,500 drawers and then comparing ourselves to each other and things like that. They laugh at that, man, because that whole money respects money. Yeah, that's true, but there's a such thing as money. For instance, the dude who started, what's the name of that website for shoes that sells shoes online? It's the biggest footwear company, the biggest online shoe company in the world. You know what I mean? The dude is like a multi-billionaire now, maybe coming up on $1 trillion. But you know what he said? Here's the dude who's what, like a trillionaire almost, or he's at least a multi-billionaire. But you know what this dude said? How many pairs of sneakers or whatever do you think this guy owns? Who owns the very biggest footwear website in the world? 2. He has 2 pairs of shoes. So one is like more dress shoes and the other is sneakers for the gym. But so here's this guy who's a multi-billionaire and has 2 sneakers. You know what I mean? So you would walk past him on the street or see him somewhere and not have any idea. And we laugh, like as a culture, we laugh at those people. It's like, oh, what is he wearing? Oh, he got on New Balance. And I've noticed that with, because, you know, my other mother, I call them mom and pop. Like, I love them, like, for real, they're my family at this point. I've been training them, for 5-6 years now. But just the circles that they've had me in and the people that they introduced me to, and, you know, they're real cool. They're good friends with the owner of the Philadelphia Arena football team. So the owner of that team, you know, Mr. Marty, he's a funny dude too, man. Mr. Marty's hilarious, but Marty Judge. But anyway, he's so cool and all of that. But when you look at these people, you would laugh at them. Like if they came to our school or they came to a battle rap event or something like that, and you saw them, regular t-shirts, regular old like Wrangler or Levi's jeans or whatever, and then regular sneakers that we'd probably call Bobos or whatever, or it's just wild regular. And so money does respect money, but real wealthy people don't have to wear their money like that. So, you know, that's just the whole mentality, man. We got to get away from that. But with DMX, man, that's what I really love about him. Where he said, man, no matter how rich he gets or how much money he has or whatever the case may be, you can always catch him walking around with the 50-cent dog chain, you know what I'm saying, the dog collar joint. And never really care what people thought of him to the degree where a lot of other people do. And when I say don't care, we all, of course, we want to be viewed in a certain light. We all want to be respected and things like that. But there's a difference between wanting your person to be respected and viewed positively and wanting your persona to be respected. And most people, particularly in entertainment or a situation where there are a lot of eyes on you, you focus more on your persona. You always want to be seen as, you know, the dude with the most money, the dude that can get all the chicks, and the dude with the best car and things like that. When at the end of the day, that stuff is hollow. It really is hollow. Do you know who has the highest suicide rate in the world? Do you know who has the highest suicide rate? Well, nowadays, it's the transgender community. So transgender people, they kill themselves more than anybody. They have like a 40% suicide rate, or at least the suicide attempt rate. It's crazy, but that's more recent. And the reason why they kill themselves, and most of them, they kill themselves post-surgery, because the way that they always felt about it was, oh well, you know, I'm a dude in a girl's body, or I'm a guy I'm a girl in a guy's body, and they think, man, all I need to do once I transition, I'll be okay. Finally, I'll be all right, and I'll feel okay. So they get the surgery. And they find out that it still means nothing. They're still miserable. They're still depressed. And that is the same thing. But until recently, until the transgender community took it out, until the transgender community took it over, it was the wealthy community, the wealthy population. Wealthy people have the highest suicide rate in the world, and it's been like that for a while. And do you know why? It's because of the way we view money. We all view money as, man, once we get a certain amount, and once we're good, and once we have money, we'll be all right. Our problems are going to go away. We won't be depressed. We won't be sad. We won't be this. But what ends up happening is they get everything that they've been working their entire lives for, spent all of their time, energy, effort, and resources to get it. They have it and are still miserable. So the wealthy people kill themselves for two reasons. One of them is what I just said. They have everything that they could ever want and are still miserable. So, they swallow a pistol. Or the other reason is if they're wealthy and they're used to having the money and they lose it. So people who really understand money and what it means and how it works understand that this stuff is, you're chasing the ghost, man. You're chasing the ghost. When money is your goal, what you're doing is you're willing to do anything to get it. And like the Bible says, money is not the root of all evil. And the Bible doesn't say that. What the Bible says is the love of money is the root of all evil. And that's a fact. When you look at the pharmaceutical company, from the pharmaceutical companies who are making us sick and then giving us cure, well, not even cures, but giving us stuff where we have to continue to combat the sickness, from the pharmaceutical companies to the dude on the block selling poison to his own people. It's about the money, and they're willing to kill for it. They don't care who dies. They don't care who they make sick. They don't care about tearing families apart. In the words of Loaded Lux from the Calico Battle, man, you think it's cool to make a mother love that dope more than she loves her daughter? Shoot a father from his son, turn around and put that boy on the corner? That's every city USA right there. And that's real. That's dead real. But so man, X, he was just always the same, and you gotta love and appreciate a guy like that. And he worked very hard, man. He didn't. We may have thought that it was like overnight success or a situation like that, but it wasn't. This dude was trying to get on for a long time before he actually got on. He actually had a record deal, with, I forget, who was that record deal with? I forget who the actual deal was with, but he had a record deal prior to Def Jam, and he put out an album he made an album called Born Loser, before he actually blew. And, so he was trying for a long, long time, and he'd gone through a whole lot. And what ended up happening was X got with Irv. When Irv heard X, because, X was doing what he was doing, going around the streets battling, because that's what you did back then. You battled to try to get on. So X is going down around the streets, battling, killing everybody, and he just couldn't get on like that. But Irv heard him and said, yo, this dude especially is going to be something. And at the time, X had run into to DMY, who at the time, they didn't have the Rough Riders label. At that time, they started a little business venture, and it was called the Rough Riders, but the Rough Riders was nothing but just a management team. So, they from the Bronx and everything. And, Yonkers in the Bronx, they're neighbors. So X was running around with Swiss, their nephew, because they were real good friends. They used to go around robbing people and just all of that type of stuff. And the Rough Riders they were going around shopping X around, trying to get him into a situation, and nobody was picking him up because at the time, because of his reputation. In and out of jail all the time because, he was robbing people, for real, for real. So a lot of these rappers that talk about the street life and everything, that dude is authentic, man. He meant it. He meant everything he said. And unfortunately, at a young age, he had just gotten out of a prison stint, or jail stint rather. He was still fairly young, and he was with his homeboy, and at the time, DMX, he wasn't really rapping like that, he was beatboxing. So his homeboy, a close friend of his, was the rapper, so they would go around to different hoods, finding people to battle with beatboxing and rapping and everything. And so X would smoke weed from time to time, but wasn't even a big, pothead or nothing. What ended up happening was he was with his homeboy, the rapper, and the dude had twisted up, and he laced the weed with some coke. So with hard cocaine, crack cocaine, which at the time in the late 80s, I don't fault those people for falling victim to the crack epidemic, because at the time it was just recreational. It was really no different. Cocaine, the powder cocaine, was seen as like a luxury drug, but it was it was more expensive. But once, freebase hit, it was just seen as basically, a recreational drug. They didn't know the effects of it. They didn't know what it did to people back then in the 80s. So it's very, very different. If somebody becomes a crackhead now, or if somebody becomes a crackhead or became a crackhead after 1992, 1993, I don't really feel bad for them because it's like they knew what they were getting into. But prior to that, they had no idea. So along with being able to identify with X, because he doesn't allow other people's perceptions of him to affect the way that he moves and doing what he wants to do as far as style or whatever. When you look at X, man, the dude's still dressed like he did back when he was on top of the world. And you can't tell him nothing because, of course, people are always going to have something to say. Just like goods, oh, you wearing the 2XTs and your jeans, and because the world has evolved where the young folks are now, it's fashionable now to wear, the Ugg boots and the skin tight jeans and all of that, man. Some people ain't with that. Some people don't care about, the fashion trends and whatnot. And I always grew up I was taught to be one of those, particularly because I come from a pretty big family. I have one older brother and one older sister and two younger sisters. And I shared in another video, man, we were from the city, like we from Camden, New Jersey. But our parents moved once Camden got really bad, because it got really bad. So, just look Camden up, man. Look at the amount of murder, look at the murder rate, look at the drugs. Our parents didn't want us growing up like that. And so when my youngest sister was born, the baby, is when my parents finally said, nah, we got to go. Like, it's getting too bad. We don't want our kids growing up here. And they elected for my father to be the one that worked and provided, and my mother was a stay-at-home mom. So needless to say, they moved us out to the suburbs. We wasn't swimming in money. With 5 kids, what? One person working? Some people said that couldn't work. But they did it, man. I grew up in a fantastic home full of love. I love my parents, but needless to say, while I had classmates, whenever the new Jordans or the Iversons or whatever, whenever the new stuff came out, they all had the chance to get it. Video game consoles, they're getting all the games. We didn't have that, so we're going to school just in regular clothes. I'm wearing hand-me-downs, from my brother. And that made it kind of difficult too, because my brother's almost 10 years older than I am, so, and I was the runt too, so I couldn't fit a whole lot of stuff. But even still, man, we didn't have all of the name brand, the cool guy stuff that a lot of people had. So my dad instilled in us very, very early on, man, look, listen, the name on the tag of your clothes doesn't do anything for the name on your birth certificate. And that's just a fact. So I grew up with that. So while it's cool to have nice things and it's cool to want nice things, I was taught, and it was, I'm so appreciative, because that's not the end all be all. Man, how much my shoes cost doesn't say anything about me at all. It really doesn't. So I don't value that type of stuff. You know what I mean? There's a difference between enjoying or whatever, but I don't value it. Even now, I got a car. It's it's not a Wraith. It's not anything like that, but it gets me where I need to go. It's nice. I mean, it's not a luxury joint. It's not a 2019, but it's cool. It gets me where I gotta go. It serves its purpose for now. Now, if and when I get to the point where my business is really rocking and rolling, I'll get something, even better. But even still, I don't need a Bentley. That's not something that's necessary for me. And if I had $10 million right now, I wouldn't get a new car because I don't need one. My car is just fine. And what I want to do, my goal in life, man, I'm trying to set up, I want to have a family. I want to raise the children the way my father raised me. So once I get married, I'm going to start a family and everything like that. And I'd rather put my money into the future of my children and, my wife and, just life. And we can enjoy life a completely different way. So that's why I kind of appreciate and identify with X. But another way I identify with X is through his addiction. And I haven't talked about this publicly at all. But the people who know me and my family, friends, close relatives, things like that, they're definitely familiar with my situation. But I ended up getting caught up and having to battle and fight with addiction, which is why right now, one of the things that I'm doing even with my profession, is this is the next phase of my profession, is I want to start going to recovery centers and working at recovery centers in fitness to help people that are in recovery, because it really isn't a game. It's not a joke, man. You hear on the songs and the music, the people are glorifying the use of drugs and certain things, and I just shake my head, because what they've done is, like I was just saying about crack cocaine in the 80s, they didn't know any better back then. It was just a recreational thing. So now it turned into the same exact thing with lean, and the pill game is heavy right now. So the kids are just thinking that, all right, yeah, man, we just having fun. But that stuff, man, particularly with the opiates, there's no drug worse than opiates, period. Even look at how addicting crack cocaine is. Even with that, it's not a physically addicting drug like that. So when you stop, the withdrawal isn't that bad physically with that. But opiates, it gets to the point where your body is dependent on them. And I ended up getting addicted because, as you know, I played college football, and I broke a finger, I broke both of my ankles, and it just got bad. I dealt with a lot of concussions. I'm dealing with CTE right now, which is easier to manage now because there are tools and they've been studying about it. But it's just a whole lot of stuff going on. But to make a long story a little less long, I ended up getting addicted to painkillers from my old football days. And, so I started taking them, and I was prescribed them, of course, post-surgery. And I didn't see anything wrong with him. And once the original cycle was done, again, I broke stuff multiple times. So once the original cycle was done, and I just kept taking them, and I kept wanting them. I didn't understand it. I didn't know they were addicting at all. Like, I wasn't really exposed to anything like that. And I had no idea how addicting the painkillers were until it was too late. It got to the point where it was no longer for recreation, and it was no longer for pain, rather. I'm sorry. It was for recreation, and it got to the point where I needed it. It's physically addicting. So even in my addiction, man, like, addiction is not one of those things that happens overnight, and it doesn't happen in a way where it's like a light comes on and it's like, oh, you know what? I'm going to be addicted. Before you know it, you're addicted. And the saddest part about addiction is a whole lot of your I nevers will come true. So a lot of the things that you would think or say or really believe in your heart that you would never do, one by one off the list, man, those things start getting crossed off. So at the worst of my addiction, I was taking Percocets, man. The Perc 10s, I needed 11, anywhere between 10 and 15 of them a day. And that was just to be regular. That was just to not feel bad. So when you really think about how much that is, it's mind-boggling. It's crazy. And, so that's what I was going through. And one by one, a lot of my I nevers started coming true. Like, I just started doing things because I was making decent money at the time, too. I had a job with the government. I was working down at Fort Dix military base making good money, and I worked at a place called Sendant Mortgage, and this is before the housing crisis. So this is still when there's a whole lot of money in real estate and things like that, and I made good money. But with a $150 to $200 a day habit, that money goes quick, man. It goes fast. So, I had to figure out strange ways to make money, man. I started getting into these things where I was scheming, and I had this thing I was doing at Walmart or just any store really where, you get a receipt for something, go take it off the shelf, and then go act like you're returning it, and you get the cash for it. And I just got into that, and it just got really, really bad, man. So I'm very appreciative of my family, my loved ones, for, helping me out when I was at my lowest, because it would have been easy for them to turn their backs on me, particularly my parents, and particularly because of the way that they raised me. But they stuck it out, and they really helped me through that. And, man, I praise the Lord for that. I really, truly do. And so my heart goes out to people that are dealing with addiction, and particularly, again, with opiates, because of how addicting opiates are. But even in my addiction, and even with me going through and scheming and doing all of that stupid stuff that I was doing, getting into the criminal lifestyle, getting locked up, and just for ridiculous reasons, even with all of that, I was still feeling like, yeah, well, I'm not that bad, because it's just pills, and it's just prescription pills. Like, this is the doctor prescribed them to me, so I'm kind of justifying it within myself, until I learned about it. And I found out that Percocets, the painkillers, the opiates, they are literally legal heroin. They're no different than heroin, and I thought it was. By the grace of God, though, I never did dope. And, you know, a couple people tried to get me to do it because they were saying, yo, it's the same exact thing. It's just a whole lot cheaper, but I never got into it. And number one, because I hate needles. I don't do needles outside of tattoos, which is different. But also I don't put anything in my nose. So that was just the grace of God to save me, because I'm telling you now, if I would have started doing heroin, I would have most definitely passed away. I would have died with the level of the habit that I had. So I'm just so thankful to the Lord. And that's another thing where I can identify with DMX, man. Addiction is not a game. It's not a joke. It's not a game. So for him to be open with it, and for him to be fighting, and for him to be able to function the way he was, man, it was just so dope, yo. It was so dope. But with his music is not about simply, oh, let's get the party going, or glorifying certain things. He uses his music and his voice to tell a story. He's telling you about him. Listen to his music. Listen to the pain in his voice and just his content. I'm very big on content. And as you can tell now, you know, just with my assessment and assertion of, you know, in the battle rap world, the battle rap industry, give me bars because I like the craft. I like the science of everything. Give me the craft and give me content, and you can keep all the other stuff. All of that other stuff is just an added bonus. If you can do backflips and cartwheels, that's fine too. But above everything, have something to say and say it in a dope way. So, but X, just his energy is just off the charts, B. There won't ever be another one. We will never see another DMX at all. And in that way, in that regard, he is like another Tupac Shakur, another Biggie Smalls, because those guys, I feel bad for them because they never really got the opportunity to flourish like they should have. Well, Pac did. He put out a lot of content and albums and all of that. He put out a lot of music. But Big particularly, man, Big has so much more internet he could have put out. And, you know, but even with Big, as far as the craft, Big was lyrically dope. One of the nicest ever with his content. That's where he and I disconnect. And you know, because I wasn't really ever into, like I said, the Versace shades. That stuff never really moved me like that, just because I understood. But the tracks that Big did, where he's talking about how he grew up, and he's talking about life through the lens and perspective of where he came from and his situation, those are my favorite Big tracks. And Pac, man, the same deal with him. When Pac was being genuine, that's my favorite Tupac. And lyrically, he wasn't, I ain't gonna say he wasn't that nice, but he wasn't like over the top special lyrically. But it's his content that drew me with Tupac. So, you know, I don't ever say that one is greater than the other, because they're not. They're just too different. But X is right there with those guys, where you know that there just won't ever be another one. So it does my heart very well when I see that he's out and he's doing well, and, you know, he's got a handle on, you know, the addiction, and he's managing life. And it's one of the things I love most about him is how much he helps people and how much he loves people. And this is according to the people that know him the most. He didn't blow his money like a lot of these millionaires and the guys who get rich and famous overnight. He didn't blow his money like those dudes, buying, you know, 8 houses and two mansions full of sneakers and you know, walk-in client. He didn't blow his money like that. This dude gave a lot of his money away. He gave his money away, and that's according to Swiss, man, his right-hand man. He gave his money away helping people. You'll always be able to find videos online where X is giving people money and just talking to, even if it's not giving them money, man, he's dropping jewels, giving them things. One of the things that really hurt me the most was that the Iyanla Fix My Life, his episode of it, because it was like an ambush, and I think that she messed something up. She messed a lot of things up, and I think it could have gone better. And she gave X's son some very, very bad advice, talking about, you know, you got to draw lines, and then if he doesn't do what you want him to do or say what you want him to say, then you just cut all ties with him and that's just, I don't know where she got her degrees and everything from, but that just wasn't the right move. So, you know, I hope for everybody's sake, all of his children, he got a lot of kids with a lot of different women. That's one if I had a problem with DMX, that would be my problem. But look, man, listen to him speak, listen to his story and everything. Not only did he not have a father in his life, watch all my videos and just think about how often I bring up my father and my mother and how I was raised. That is because they are the foundation, man. They give you the lens through which to view life. So not only did DMX not have his father, he said he didn't know nobody that had a father. So we know how to become men by what our fathers teach us, right? And we know based on what we see. The most important things we can give our children is a front row seat to see what a loving marriage looks like. And that was one of the messages I had to Goods, where, you know, he'd be on the camera bragging or talking about how good of a father he is for having that clause in his contract where, oh, I won't ever let anybody disrespect my daughter in my face. And yeah, that's fine and that's cool. Doesn't make you a good father. The most important thing your daughter needs definitely is she should see you treating her mother like a queen. Married, she needs the front row seat to a good marriage, a great relationship, so she knows how that works. You know what I mean? And so that's more valuable than, you know, your profession and people not saying nothing and all of that type of stuff. How often do people talk about, oh, your mother and your sister, your father, and that's just what it is. And particularly in the battle rap circuit, where ain't none of that stuff legitimate anyways, where that's all they talk about is, oh, I'll do this to your mom, and, you know, me and your moms did that, and I'll do this to your daughter. Man, that stuff ain't real. It ain't legit. So, you know, while that's kind of cool or whatever, and I guess I understand that aspect, there's a whole lot more to it. There's a whole lot more to it. And so, yeah, man, with X, I definitely hope, so with X and his children, he's learning as he goes along. But you can tell and you can know that his heart is right. His heart is there. So that's my hope for DMX is that he's learning constantly and being and becoming the father that every child, you know, should be blessed to have. I hope he is to his children what my father was to my siblings and I. And but yeah, so X's music, it's not all murder, death, kill. And a lot of it, man, he just bears his pain. And he set a lot of trends. You know that Busta Rhymes joint, to touch it, bring it, play it. That song is definitely dope, and the idea is dope. The whole, you start off kind of low, then you switch up and turn it up. X is the one that started that. If you look at the first Ruff Ryders compilation, Ride or Die Volume 1, the last track, X did it on that joint. He did it on, I think, what was it, Flesh of My Flesh? He might have even done it on It's Dark and Hell is Hot. But yeah, that style, he was the first one that did that. Then, you know, Busta did the Touch It joint, and that blew up. That was huge. That got big. But X was the first one with that. And with his style, is just so unique. I love, one of the things that I truly enjoy is I love going to YouTube or online or whatever and finding clips of DMX stories where people tell stories about, you know, their interactions with him or something that happened. This dude, not aside, but along with Mike Tyson's stories, I think DMX stories are my favorite joints. Listen to, you know, the Johns Irv Gotti told on the Nori podcast. As a matter of fact, for like when Nori first did his Drink Champs drink, like the first 2 or 3 episodes before X was on there, everybody came with a DMX story. So it was Fat Joe, then Kiss and Ja went up there, and who was next? I forget, but then they ended up getting X on there. So I thought that was dope. But just the DMX stories. And Irv is responsible for a lot of stuff. Irv is responsible for getting X into Def Jam, which was dope, because the Rough Riders, DNY, when they were his managers, his management team, they took him to Bad Boy to see Puff. They took him along with the Locks. And so the Locks spit, Puff loved them, he picked them up, and X spit too, and Puff was just like, nope, his voice is too rough and he's not marketable. But that was at the time where it was very aspirational, where music was aspirational, and it was all about, I'm on a private jet, shiny suits, and, you know, Versace this. That's where the game was at the time. So you see what Puff did to the Locks. They were the Warlocks at the time initially. Then they changed to just the Locks. And then Puff made them make LOX stand for something, so they chose living off experience. But yeah, so Puff had a chance to sign X too, but he was just like, nope, his voice is too rough and he's not marketable. So X left there and, you know, went back on the grind, and then had to see the Locks, who were, you know, not as young boys at the time, but they were the generation under him. So he's watching, you know, and they all grew up in the same area. Like, they knew X, they were tight with him at a time, but X was the older dude. He was the crazy dude in the neighborhood, running around robbing everything. School Street, home of the brave. And so X had to watch them do that, but then he also saw what Bad Boy did to the Locks. Like, he turned the Locks into, you know, the commercialized, like he removed them from their essence. So, you know, X is back on the grind with it, and Irv, with the first time he heard X, he knew, yeah, this is the guy. So Irv was working, I forget where he had the job at first, but then he went and got a job at Def Jam, and his first day, the way he tells the story, his first day, the very moment he signed his contract with Def Jam, he said, yeah, we got to sign DMX. And he said everybody in the building was laughing at him just because he was so aspirational and was just really trying to, like, bro, you just got here. The ink ain't even dry on your contract, and you talking about signing somebody already? And he's like, nah, you got to do it. So, you know, he just kept talking about it. They wouldn't give him the shot at first. And finally, Lyor Cohen broke and agreed. And it was like, all right, I'll go listen to him. So once, and at that time, X had just gotten out of the hospital where he was accused of robbing somebody, or maybe did rob somebody that he shouldn't have robbed. Because there's a couple different accounts of the story. One story is that, he robbed a lot of people, but this particular individual, he didn't rob that person. And robbed the person for a coat. I forget what kind of coat. Like, it might have been like the bubble joints, one of the old school bubble coats. But he didn't really do it, where he found it somewhere, or I forget exactly how that story went. But and then there was another account of the story where it was somebody that he robbed that he shouldn't have robbed. It was like a made man, basically, somebody that was affiliated with DNY in some type of capacity. And so while that violation, you usually get killed for that, you know, the green light was given, like, all right, look, man, you can, quote unquote, teach the dude a lesson and all of that, but you can't kill him. So, you know, X got beaten up, and he got jumped, and he got beat up real bad. He was in the hospital and everything, where they said he almost died. If they didn't get him to the hospital when they did, he would have died, because his throat was starting to swell shut. He had his jaw broken real bad, couldn't speak, so his jaw is wired. But Irv set up the meeting. X just got out the hospital. He's like super duper skinny because, you know, of course he couldn't eat. And he found out about us. So Irv went to X like, yo, I got him. So Lyor came to the studio, and he says, I love the way Lyor tells the story too, Lyor Cohen from Def Jam. But he was like, yo, I get to the studio, and it's just littered with rappers. It's rappers everywhere. He was like, man, yo, the pizza man, the pizza man who came to drop off pizza found that I was there, and he tried to spit a 16 for me. So it was just like that. So it was just everybody, any rapper in the area that you could imagine went there that night to try to impress Lyor. And he said the X came in, he got in there kind of late, like 2, 3 in the morning or whatever. And Lyor said from the moment X started rapping, he knew. He said, man, if my mother was there, she would have pulled me to the side and said, that's him. So he said X was real excited.